Okay, so Cybershell, right? He's a cool guy. I've been a huge fan of him for years. He does these Sonic videos, and back in the day when he did Let's Plays of the main Sonic games, he'd cap it off with a bonus video about the game in question. In these bonus videos, he'd share fun facts and beta stuff and glitches and generally just some cool shit. So here I am, gravy on my cock, thinking, why don't I steal this idea and apply it to the main Mario games after I cover them in the marathon? It's foolproof. So that's where we are. Welcome to the Super Mario Bros. Bonus video. I'd recommend you watch my main review of Mario 1 for additional knowledge. I organized all the facts here I have lined up in a few categories: development, glitches, general fun facts, rumors, and version differences. Here we go! The very first prototype of Mario 1 had you control a 16 by 32 pixel square that couldn't jump. It was actually Tezuka's idea to make Mario the star of the game. Also, each level was designed by hand on graph paper since level creation tools weren't available at the time. As I mentioned in the review of this game, a lot of heavy changes happen around this graph papery stage of development, like Mario's gun, dinosaur, flying, all that fun stuff. There's a lot of holdovers from games of the era around this point too. Like originally the entire game would have black skies and Mario would jump with up on the D-pad, and man, I'm glad they didn't do that. A lot of stuff was added very last minute, and there's quite a few clever workarounds that the devs had to do to fit everything in the game. The most well-known example is that the graphics for the bushes and clouds are the exact same sprite, just different colors. Also, a few levels are repeats of previous ones, but with new elements. For example, 5-3 is the exact same as 1-3, but with bullet bills, and 6-4 is a slightly harder version of 1-4. Goombas were added very last minute. The main enemy of the game was supposed to be Koopa Troopas, but due to the shell-kicking mechanic, this made the game pretty hard for newer players. This led to the creation of the only enemy that is as simple as they walk around and you jump on them. There was barely even any room for them in the game, so believe it or not, they only have one sprite. Their walk animation is just the same sprite flipped back and forth. Goomba's name in Japan is Kuribo, which translates literally to chestnut boy. They're intended to be shiitake mushrooms, an evil analog to toads, but whoever named the sprite mistook it as a chestnut, so forever they are named Kuribo. Bowser's Japanese name, Koopa, and in turn the English name for the Koopa Troopas, are named after a Korean dish known as either kuppa or gukbap. Other names of dishes considered were yukko and bimbimbap. Koopa Troopas in Japan are known as Noko Noko, which means nonchalant, and Toad's name is Kinopio, which means mushroom. In this concept art stage, we see some sketches of Mario sprites never used in the game. Something interesting is that these use Mario's red and blue palette, like most games up to this point, and not the red and brown one used in the final game. The unused sprites are of him thinking, and an animation of him doing a crotch chop like Waluigi. Alright, how about some glitches? Here's a super famous one, the Minus World. In a lot of underground levels, you can jump up on the top of the ceiling and run over the HUD. Apparently in Japan, it was popular for kids to make Mario crouch over the coin and make it look like he's taking a golden poop. Anyway, in these levels, there's always a hidden warp zone behind the level exit. The most famous example is the very first one in 1-2. This is where you perform the Minus World glitch. So you have to be on the left side of this L-shaped pipe at the end of the level. Break a few blocks of Super Mario and jump backwards, and if you get it right, you'll clip through the block wall. How clipping works in Mario 1 is that if you can't be standing somewhere due to collision, but are anyway, the game will glide you in a direction, usually backwards. This can happen pretty often in usual gameplay, like if you're one tile tall as Small Mario with a block over your head, then get a mushroom, or if you slide under this one tile gap in the beginning of 1-2. So this collision will slide you backwards into the warp zone room. You want to go through either the first or third pipe. The second one takes you to World 5. Welcome to the Minus World. It takes you to 7-2, but at the top there, it's labeled -1. Thus the name. If you get to the end, the warp pipe just takes you back to the start, making the level infinitely loop until you game over. The Minus World was subject to decades worth of playground and early internet rumors. It's a classic gaming mystery. That mysterious energy really is missing from games and their glitches, now with the internet. I plan to do a video all about old school gaming rumors and shit like that sometime in the future. Let me know if you'd like to see that. Anyway, by playing around with the game's code, you can actually find a ton more glitched out levels. 256 to be exact. 256 is a common number in game glitches. I'm not an expert on this stuff by any means, but to my understanding, automatically generated aspects of old games, such as, say, boards in an arcade game, can only count up to 256. So like, if you're familiar with Pac-Man's kill screen, you can only play up to level 256 before the game gets too glitchy to play. Here's a favorite of mine that I never see anyone talk about. In 6-3, you can jump on a bullet bill at this exact spot in this exact way. If you do it right, the bullet bill makes this weird white line like it's climbing down a spider web, and Mario bounces on it infinitely. The bullet bill slowly descends while you do so. It's fun. There's also the small fire Mario glitch, achieved by hitting one of Bowser's axes and taking a hit from him at the same time. Mario will turn back into a super form, but he gets small when getting a mushroom. And if you take a hit, you get big again. Real bass-ackwards shit. Getting a fire flower, however, results in small Mario with Fire Mario's palette. What's cool here is that it's not only cosmetic. You have the fire powers of Fire Mario, but the small size too, which allows you to sneak through one-tile gaps. Also, using the fire flower shows the normal sprite for one frame, because obviously there's no custom sprite for small Fire Mario shooting fireballs. Dying reverts everything back to normal. Everyone's tried to jump over the flagpole at least once, right? I mean, every single level you jump onto it, and sometimes you could just swear you barely missed getting over it. Well, believe it or not, you can. There's no invisible wall or nothing. It's most easy here in 3-3, where you can make this lift go up to make it a cakewalk that just kinda hop on over it. But there's this pretty cool glitch that can be done to do it right in 1-1. When this Koopa jumps off into the pit, you have to jump at this exact right second into the top left of the screen. The screen loops from top to bottom for a frame, making it possible for Mario at the top of the screen to jump on the Koopa at the bottom of the screen. The Koopa retreats into its shell, and when it gets out of it, he'll be walking underneath the ground. You gotta escort mission this dude all the way to the flagpole, and if you time your jump right, you can bounce right off him and over the flagpole. So what's on the other side? A whole bunch of nothing! This part of the castle is a block that you can stand on, but other than that, the screen just kind of keeps scrolling infinitely until you die. This isn't as much a glitch as an exploit, but it's just too fucking iconic not to mention. The 1-up trick. If you bounce on enough enemies in a row, you get rewarded with a 1-up, and if you keep going, you get more and more for each bounce until the chain breaks. This will almost never happen in the original game though, because the big bounce off enemies mechanic isn't in this one. However, if there's a Koopa walking downstairs, you can bounce on it multiple times by jumping on it once to put it in their shell and then keep kicking it over and over into the stair block. If you position yourself well enough, you can bounce on it as long as you want, racking up an insane amount of lives. I must admit, I never got too good at doing this trick, but it's pretty famous. I know a lot of people make a point to do this at least once a playthrough. If you collect a lot of lives, you'll notice that your life counter has this little crown. The crown represents 10 lives. When I was a kid, I always thought that this was a glitch. It kinda looks like a garbled sprite, but nope, it's a crown. Every additional 1-up after that adds a normal number, but then when it gets to 10 again, it starts doing the alphabet. So here I have crown D lives, or 24 lives. You like how I segued that glitch into a fun fact? Well, guess what? You're in the fun facts section now. So now it's time for some fucking fun facts, bro. Starting with the most well-known stuff and moving on to the obscure, let's talk about fireworks. If you end any level that's not a castle level with your timer at a number ending in 1, 3, or 6, that number of fireworks will explode. Each firework is worth an additional 500 points. I'm pretty sure this is common knowledge by now, but if you hold A on the game over screen, pressing start in the title screen will let you continue from the first level of the world you died on, so you don't have to start the entire game over again. It's pretty nifty. In the lost levels, Hammer Bros are a little more aggressive by walking towards you after a bit, but what a lot of people don't know is that they do this in the first game too. You just have to wait 100 seconds on the timer. Reminds me of the chain chomps breaking loose in Mario 3. You ever play through the game and notice sometimes there's supposed to be an invisible 1-up block, but there just kinda isn't? Well, that's actually because, believe it or not, these blocks are conditional. It's the only game in the series that works like this. They appear in the first level of every world. 1-1 will always have this one right before the first pit, no matter what. But for the rest of the game, you have to have either collected every single coin in the third level of the previous world, or have warped there. Only then will these 1-ups appear. Here's something that I'm kinda embarrassed to admit how long I went without noticing. Mario has 2 jump sounds. One for Super Mario, and one for Small Mario. Why they did that with such tight storage limitations, I'll never know. Koji Kondo, the game's composer, is legendary to the gaming community, creating many iconic tracks over the past 30+ years. However, he's a fucking fraud! Okay, I kid. But some of the songs in Mario 1 are pretty damn similar to his inspirations. The overworld theme sounds a lot like this part of T-Square's Sister Marion. The underground theme sounds similar to Let's Not Talk About It by Friendship. And the Starman theme is pretty damn close to Summer Breeze by Piper. Damn, Kondo's got the best taste in music. These are all songs that Koji was a fan of at the time, but let's not fault him too much for it. Back then, this was a super common practice in video game music, making your songs sound just similar enough to your influences. Street Fighter 2 did it, Doom did it, and Sonic the Hedgehog 3 did it. Kinda, I mean that's another topic altogether. Kondo developed his style since then, I just find it interesting is all. Despite Nintendo constantly going on aggressive crusades to take down fan content and censor their own history, their most iconic songs are essentially literal fucking plagiarism. I just love that double standard. Speaking of music, Nintendo officially recorded a version of the Overworld theme with lyrics. Frontal Floss, eat your heart out. A fan sent in lyrics to the song to a Japanese radio station. Which one? Who knows? I couldn't find it. But anyway, Nintendo liked it so much that they had an official recording of it made. The song is called Mario no Daiboken, and it was used as recently as the 2003 Nintendo Big Band performance. Lyrics weren't the only thing that this game inspired the fans to do, as this game obviously inspired thousands of people who would later become famous game developers and artists in their own right. For example, Yuji Naka, the lead developer on Sonic the Hedgehog, said that Sonic's speed-based gameplay was partially inspired by seeing how fast he could beat 1-1. Also, Gears of War developer Cliff Bleszinski has the highest score of the game on the first issue of Nintendo Power. Small world. Like I said when talking about the Minus World, I miss the mystique that games used to have. A lot of that stuff revolves around rumors, like, ooh man, if you get every coin in Mario 64, you can unlock Luigi and take him to go get groceries, and the store attendant will give you a mission to run around the star statue 256 times, and that will make Sonic appear, and he'll kick you in the nuts so you can channel that pain into summoning the Bowser Room. It's always a lot of fun to deep dive into these old rumors, so I definitely want to talk about them in some of these bonus videos. Mario 1 didn't have a ton, but one popular one is the hidden chocolate factory level mentioned in the strategy guide, or that the game gets harder and harder every playthrough until every enemy is Bowser. But honestly, that's about it for this game. It wasn't really until Mario World in 64 when the rumor mill went nuts. So let's move on to our next category, version differences. In the original video, I talked about the many ports and variations Super Mario Bros. Got over the years. One was Super Mario Bros. Special, a Hudson-made game for the NEC 8801 computer. The more I think about it, this was kind of its own arguably main Mario game. I mean, it was developed by Hudson, who back in the day Nintendo trusted like no other. Fun fact, you can collect the Hudson Bee in the first level for a bunch of points. Maybe we'll actually go back in the marathon and give this game and the other Hudson PC games a full review. Let me know if that's an episode you guys would like to see, I'd be totally willing to do it. One version I didn't mention was the one on the PlayChoice 10 machine. In case you didn't see the Mario 3 episode, the PlayChoice 10 machine was an arcade cabinet with 10 different NES games, refitted to be played on an arcade. These aren't emulated either, they're specially made cartridges that go into the arcade board, each with a different game on it. Anyway, I got to try Super Mario Bros. On one at Too Many Games 2022, and it was pretty cool. I will say the whole holding the run button and jumping thing doesn't work terribly well on the flat arcade pad. I kinda had to hold my hand sideways over it like this. But other than that, it's a really neat port. Speaking of TMG, I grabbed myself a Famicom while I was there, and a copy of that version of Super Mario Bros. It comes on this neat yellow cartridge. What sucks is that it only outputs through coaxial, so I had to get behind my CRT and screw it in. However, channel 1 and 2 in Japan, where the Famicom goes into, aren't the same as the US channel 1 and 2, and is actually channel 95 and 96. But my CRT doesn't have a channel 95 or 96, so I tried it on my 4K TV, which does have those channels, but retro games, especially through coaxial, look like fucking shit on HD TVs. So my game looks like this! Also in Japan, for some reason, they ported the game into the disc system. This version of the game is almost entirely identical. They didn't even add the updated ending music from the Lost Levels. However, there is one difference I could find. The Minus World is totally different. For some reason, the Minus World in this version is made up of 3 levels. The first is an underwater version of 1-3. At the beginning is the floating lifeless body of Princess Peach, and a little later on you're attacked by a gray headless Bowser. Then the second level is just a copy of 7-3, but the one after that is a version of 4-4, but instead of being in the castle theme, it's now the underground theme. Also new here is a bunch of airborne bloopers, which we wouldn't see until the Lost Levels. Cool enough, you can jump on them just like the Lost Levels, so maybe flying bloopers were intended for the first game. What about Super Mario All-Stars? Can you get the Minus World in that game? It's possible, but it works differently. Doing the clip in 1-2 is a lot harder. The code is just all different, so I think this requires a lot more testing. I also couldn't do it in Deluxe because for some reason, you could just kind of break blocks from the side in that version. Very strange choice. Also, it can't be done in Versus because they remove some of the blocks at the end of 1-2. They really don't want people to do this glitch, huh? Anyway, back to some other ports. The game was kinda, sorta, maybe playable inside the original Animal Crossing. You see, in the GameCube Animal Crossing, you can obtain these NES consoles with games on them, and actually play the games too. It's pretty neat, although most of the games are primitive black box games like Excitebike and Tennis and shit. No disrespect, but not too crazy. For 2002, I'm sure it was kinda cool, but anyway. Well, it turns out there are 4 more involved games that you can obtain, but not by normal means. These are known as the Forbidden Four: Ice Climber, Mario Bros, The Legend of Zelda, and Super Mario Bros. So why are they called forbidden? The idea is that you'd unlock these through scanning these e-reader cards. Basically, the e-reader was this thing that'd be used on some GBA and GameCube games, where you'd scan cards to get shit in games. Anyway, the Mario Bros and Ice Climber cards got released, and are pretty rare, but Mario 1 and Zelda 1 never came out, meaning you have to cheat to get them. Versus Super Mario Bros was another version I did mention in the original video, but didn't elaborate more on until the Lost Levels episode. Basically, they designed new levels for those levels recycled in the original. The designers of these levels had so much fun doing this that the Lost Levels came out of it. You can play this Versus version on the Switch under Arcade Archives. It's a great arcade perfect port. Versus also rearranged some stuff. Some power-up and enemy locations are switched around. They added another digit to the coin counter, but it goes back to 0 after 99 in the original, so it's there for no reason. I also always thought that the palette in this game was way too bright, like the game takes place on sunset or something. One last thing on Versus, and then I'll move on. This version is way fucking harder for some reason. Playing the Switch port, I feel like Mario feels kinda different, and for the worse. Maybe they adjusted how he walks and runs for joysticks, but sometimes I feel like he doesn't turn as fast as I need him to either. They vastly increased the rate of fire for Bill Blasters and Lakitus, making once easy courses like 4-1 way fucking harder. Dude, I tried so fucking hard to get to 6-4 to show in this video, but I was fucking stuck on 6-3 for almost 2 hours. Haha, what? You're supposed to be the Mario guy, dude. You suck. Bruh, play this fucking version with no save states or rewinds and you'll see for yourself. You fucking won't, dude. It's hard. I don't understand why they'd ruin this game just to skill quarters. Imagine taking one of the most balanced games in history and just fucking it like this. Just straight dumpster that shit. Like, Lost Levels is cool because it's its own thing, but this is ridiculous. Whatever, moving on. One port actually came out since my last video. This 35th anniversary Game & Watch. It's pretty novel. It plays Super Mario Bros, Lost Levels, and a reskin of Game & Watch Ball. It's cool, I guess, but you never really end up using it. You just buy it because it seems neat. They made a Zelda one, too. And that about does it. Super Mario Bros. Is a classic game I feel like I learn new things about all the time, and I'm happy to share my knowledge with you. Thanks for watching! I have a Twitter at SuperSprited64, a webcomic that you can read at alphietales.com, and a bunch of other videos for you to check out. I have another series called Internet Interest where I talk about things I find on the internet that interest me, and this video is a spin-off of the larger Mario Marathon series where I review every single Mario game ever made. Feel free to check those out, I'd appreciate it. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you don't, and be sure to subscrizzle if you want to keep updated when I rarely upload. Thanks for watching my video.